E360 TV proudly presents messages of inspirational stories. Live streaming now to millions of devices, including Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, YouTube Live, Facebook Live. With your host, Donna, producer and host, Jim Grant, producer and host, along with Michaela Vidal, administrator and host, and Gaia Ginwa Balconi Wada, editor-in-chief.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Messages of Inspirational Stories. Today is Friday, and it's all about women in leadership. And I'm just going to take a quick moment to reprimand Jim on camera. Quit teasing me.
Well, see, it's Friday, and so I enjoy the weekend.
I know you
and
do.
It's women in leadership, so that disqualifies me. So I figured I would just take a break, and while Donna sips her tea.
Yeah, he did it again. I tell you what, guys, he's a dang rascal today.
Well, I've been drinking my good dandelion tea, and I guess I'm blooming like an idiot,
There you go. Jim, today is really interesting. We have women in leadership, and the article we found.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, I'm here to tell you that it amazes me. And I'm saying that as a female. Mm-hmm. First of all, I have never underestimated the power of females, right?
Oh, no.
Right. And if anybody does, well, then you better go back to school. That's all I can say. If
some guy's dumb enough to do that, if he survives that, he'll, I don't care how dumb he is, he'll figure out that was not good.
Right. But what amazes me is how many females go back, before the turn of the century, Jim.
Oh, yeah.
And what they have done for medical alone is absolutely flabbergasting.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, a lot of these ladies that we've got more material and we can cover in 3 shows probably. But a lot of these ladies, their stories are not told.
No. And why
they
not?
Should be told. Yeah, especially to you. Yeah.
And it's frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, the way they want to do things nowadays is it seems like they want to dumb the kids down and keep them in the dark. Well, see, all they got to do is look at what happened to humanity during the Dark Ages. For example, one of the classic things was that the Romans were really good with their cement. And this is why some of the buildings that they built, the cement just keeps getting better and better and better. And of course, nowadays that technology was lost during the Dark Ages, and that's why you walk down the sidewalks of it's been poured 1920 or something, and it's all cracked and broken up, looked like a train ran over it. But they just found out that the lime cyst that the Romans used was the missing ingredient. But my point being, during the Dark Ages, a lot of stuff was lost. And from that point on, when the women stepped up to the plate and became leaders, their stories have not been told. And that's a sin, just about.
It is.
It really is.
So I say, Jim, that we just jump right into it.
All right. I'll put my wig on, try to act my age.
Right. Please do. So this one is really, really interesting. It's about Marie Curie.
Oh,
and I had never heard of this. So guys, this is all new to me. And that's one thing I just want to say real quick that Jim and I adore about doing this show. Because there isn't a time, 5 days a week, folks, that Jim and I don't learn something right along with you.
That's exactly right.
Right. So her lifespan was 1867 to 1934.
Mm-hmm.
Now, she changed the world, Marie did, not once, but twice. She founded the new science of radioactivity. Even the word was invented by her.
Hmm.
And her discoveries launched effective cures for one of the today's most worst disease out there, cancer.
Amen.
So Curie boasts an extraordinary array of achievements. She was, says Patricia Farah, who is president of the British Society for
Hmm.
History of Science, who nominated the Polish-born French scientist. She was the first woman to win a Nobel Prize.
Mm.
First female professor at the University of Paris, and the first person, note the use of person there, not woman, to win a second Nobel Prize.
Mm. Mm. Right there is a good trivia question. Who is the first woman to win a Nobel Peace Prize? You know, uh,
Right,
it just floors me.
right. She was actually born in Warsaw, and she
Hmm.
studied physics at the University of Paris, where she met her future research collaborator and husband Pierre.
Hmm.
Together, they identified two new elements:
Mm.
radium and polonium. Is that how you say it, Jim?
Let's see here.
Polium?
Yeah. Hmm.
Polium, named after her native Poland.
Hmm.
After he died, she raised a small fortune in the US and Europe to fund laboratories and to develop cancer treatments.
Mm.
Marie Curie was a woman of action as well as enormous intellect. During the First World War, she helped to equip ambulances with x ray equipment and often drove them to the front line herself. The
Mm.
odds were always stacked against her. In Poland, her patriotic family suffered under a Russian regime. In France, she was regarded with suspicion as a foreigner. And of
Mm.
course, wherever she went, she was discriminated against because she was a woman.
Mm.
Despite becoming ill from the radioactive materials she constantly handled, Curie never lost her determination to excel in the scientific career that she loved. Her memory is preserved by the Cancer Society that bears her name and
Mm.
continues to help terminally ill patients all over the world.
Mm. She's a tremendous lady.
Absolutely.
And it's really sad. Guys, I'm telling us guys, it's really sad for you to be so puffed up with, so ignorant that you cannot, recognize. Now, this is not all men, obviously, but some guys, you cannot recognize that a lady has got some brains and probably a lot smarter than you. And, it just amazes me how down through that time period of time that they were just kind of like they were squelched. They
Well,
weren't.
we were treated mainly like brood mares. Be honest with you.
Yeah, and it's so wrong because my goodness gracious, I mean, look at all the lives that she touched, and see that's one of the wonderful things about being in leadership. You're not in it for. She didn't do this to win a Nobel Peace Prize, two of them, as a matter of fact. She did it to be a blessing to mankind, and as we've known in the past, and Donna, we've talked about this on other shows. Whenever you're focused on being a blessing to someone else,
Oh yes,
guess what happens?
the
The
blessings
energy
come
just
back to you.
it just keeps coming to you.
Yep.
Keeps coming to you because if you can handle it, it'll give you a boatload of ideas and energies and answers to questions because
Right.
I think all of us at one time or another, Donna, is we've had something on our mind, been worrying about something. I just had this recently, how to put something together I was struggling with, and I wake up, yesterday morning it was, and I had the answer,
Yep.
and it wasn't hard. I was the one making it hard.
Also, I
Ah,
think going hand in hand with that and
mhm.
piggybacking off that, Jim, is about perseverance.
Oh, I know it. I'm too dumb to quit.
Perseverance, right? Perseverance and, keep doing it, even
Hmm.
if it's not the payoff, if you will.
Right,
It's not
right.
right in front of you at the moment, because I
Yeah.
promise you, if you're doing everything for the right reasons
Yeah.
and for helping other people and benefiting other people, it's your reward will come.
Mm. Think about the lesson in that to teach younger people today about, we've heard the old saying, if it's first you don't succeed, try again.
You
But
reap what you sow.
yeah, exactly. And, that's something that's really needed because what's
Sure.
being, fed information wise to our kids today, my goodness gracious. I mean, some of the stuff, and we're not going to talk about it. You folks out there in TV land know exactly what I'm talking about. But, the common question I ask is, how can that help that kid when they grow up? Buy groceries and pay rent?
Right.
It can't. And if we look at history and we look at the standards of people that these kids need as mentors to look up to, men and women alike. I mean, because let's face it, guys, women are great leaders for us. I mean, they're the most influential group of people when we were young boys growing up, right?
Right. Well,
They
and
really
think
were.
about this. Think about this.
Mhm.
If you're married
Mhm.
and you go to buy a car, it's your
Mhm.
wife who's going to be the deciding factor. If you go to buy a house, you know what? I guarantee you the woman will override it. Oh, honey, did you see
Oh,
that kitchen?
yeah.
I never would have thought of that. Did you see that second linen closet?
Mhm.
Oh, I can do something with that. And
Mhm.
the
Oh, yeah.
husband may be going, I know
It's
my
got a
husband's
garage.
right,
Yeah,
right.
it's good.
Got a
Got a
garage and
garage and a toilet. Hey, we're all
right,
right.
pretty good with that. I know my husband has always said, baby, whatever wherever we live, if you're happy with it, and we then
Yeah.
that's where we need to be.
Oh, yeah.
If there needs to be something changed, obviously, I'm blessed he can change it. If I need a
Oh,
wall
yeah.
taken down, he can do that. If I want
Mhm.
something, a new counter made or what have you, that can be done. But it is women who lead. My
Mhm.
husband doesn't worry about food in the house or what's going to be made for dinner. He doesn't worry about, we were talking about this the other day. This is kind of
Mhm.
funny, and I think most men will agree with it. As a bachelor, you worry about, dear Lord, do I have toilet paper?
Mhm.
My husband
Yeah.
said, I don't have to worry about that anymore. And
Yeah.
quite frankly, it's kind of a good feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of like I heard a comedian many years ago says, I walked into a cafe that's made for just single men. Only single men, that's their clientele. He says, how I knew that right out of the gate when I walked in. He says, all they had instead of tables, they had sinks. The guys eat over the sink.
Right?
And a lot of truth in
Absolutely.
that.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
That way they don't have to clean up anything. It just all goes right down the drain. But yeah,
Right.
it's really amazing how,
Is and there it is.
women can make a house a home. There's no question about that. That's a special knack, a special gift, and all that. And Evelyn will ask me, she says, I put these pictures up. What do you think about them? Okay. And I'm looking to see which ones are new. You know, come
And
on,
dear God,
brain.
if you
Don't let me
open your
down.
mouth wrong, right?
Well, I'm just going to say, well, I like those. They really, all of them blend in together nicely. So you like that? Yeah, I do. I go like, "Whew, thank you, sweet Jesus. I dodged the God. Because, hey, I mean, if we get new curtains in the house, I don't go,
Right.
I'm going to call my buddy. I mean, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't.
Right.
And it's just one of those things that's just the way we're wired. It's just, as pitiful as we are, but that's just the way we're wired. And we don't pay much attention to stuff like that. At least I don't. Or all them pillows on the bed. That's another one. You take them home, put them on the floor.
We had that conversation. My
Did
husband
you?
said, yeah, he said, because I watch a lot of the do-it-yourself, where the
Movies,
demo home
shows.
shows.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, why do they all put so damn many pillows on a couch or on the chair? It's a
Oh, yeah.
small chair and they got two pillows on there and you
Mhm.
can't get your butt down there to sit without moving a pillow. He said, I get that it looks good, but you got to have some functionality with it. And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah, there
you're
you
right,
go.
baby.
hmm There you go. That's
So,
for sure. That's for sure. Yeah, it's an ongoing, not an ongoing, but every now and then I talk about, look at all these pillows got to put on the floor, And
Right?
I said, am I supposed to wipe my feet on these things or what? That's not a good comment to make, guys. You know, sense of
Oh,
humor and common sense sometimes goes out the
right?
window.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but it's really amazing, when we stop and think about things like that. It really is. And the next lady we're going to be talking about here, I'd like to mention, of course, I had never heard this lady's name. Emmeline Pankhurst,
Yep.
Pankhurst. She lived from 1858 to 1928. Donna, prior to this article, had you ever heard of her name?
Nope.
Emmeline, Emmeline, Pankhurst, Pankhurst. And in 1903, the social reformer, that's what she was. She was a social reformer. She founded the Women's Social and Political Union to campaign for the parliamentary vote for women in Edwardton, Britain. Deeds, not words, was the motto. She
I
was a
love
very, yeah, she was a very charismatic leader, a powerful orator, and she roused thousands of women to demand rather than ask politely for the democratic right in a mass movement that has been unparalleled in British history. She was always in the thick of the struggle. She didn't run from a battle. She endured 13 imprisonments, and her name and cause becoming known throughout the world. My goodness gracious. She was a she was a spark plug, wasn't she?
She was, and that's what, today we call, a mover and a shaker,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
And see, this was a lady that saw a need, and she saw the things that need to be done for this social, Reformation movement. And her name, see this here. Time magazine in 1999 actually listed her as one of us being in the 100 most important people of the 20th century.
Right?
It stated that she shaped an idea of objects of our time. My goodness gracious. This was a lady that stepped out. She was a true crusader.
Right.
And that takes a lot of backbone to be a crusader.
Well, especially during that time.
Yeah. And
Let's
going
talk
against
about,
the grain.
oh, yeah,
Yeah.
1858 to 1928. Okay,
Oh,
that was 1928. That was the Roaring Twenties. But
yeah.
women were just becoming into their own in the
Hmm.
20s,
Yeah.
right? They were just becoming into the evolution
Hmm.
of, oh my gosh, there's so much more to my life
Hmm.
than having babies and taking care of a house.
Oh, yeah.
And so, and most men at that time were way behind them.
Oh, light years.
Yeah.
The thing that I'm going to step on the men's toes a little bit since I can do that. You know, uh, I don't know where or how it got started. I guess I do understand how it got started, but it just seemed to everybody seemed to buy into it as far as the men about the way women should be treated. And see, they forget one very important thing. When Adam was down there in the garden by himself, the Lord looked at him. He didn't say he needed a wife, he needed a sweetheart, he needed a woman. He said, this boy needs some help. He needs a helper.
Mhm.
That was the exact phrase and word, and that's exactly what he meant. And I've been on stage before, and I'm in good humor. I talk about, I'm convinced that ladies got their ability to roll their eyes the way they do and look at men, probably from the good Lord. Because when the good Lord looked at Adam down there, him by himself, now he's a guy, okay? And he's got no, what's a guy going to do if he has no leadership or, any type of direction in his life? He's going to goof off.
Right.
And we don't know what Adam was doing for the Lord to use that phrase that he needs a helper. I mean, who knows? Him and the chimpanzee, they might have been throwing tangerines at one another. But the good Lord probably rolled his eyes that this boy needs some help. But see,
Right.
all the way through the history of mankind, women have been squelched. They've been looked like as second class citizens or property.
Right. A broodmare.
Oh, no. And I know, I've known a few people, ladies in my lifetime that, couple of them, I should say, where the men mistreat them and treat them like property. And they say, I'm the man. I'm the husband. You're the wife. You're going to do what I say, yada, da, da, da. And I'll tell you right now, that is one of the most ignorant statements on planet Earth because any guy that says that, you're 110% out of step with the creation of the universe.
Well, you're missing the boat from
Yeah.
having.
You're in the desert. You ain't even near the dock, buddy.
But you're missing it because
Yeah.
you're not understanding the yin and the yang of men
The
and women
value.
and of working together as a
Yeah.
team and
Mhm.
understanding the
Mhm.
strengths that women have,
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
it, we have a strength and a divine way emotionally
Mhm.
to work through things that most men do not have.
Also, too, you have a very unique gift in being able to, your gut feeling on
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
I call it the mental GPS. I mean, while we're up there floating around in la la land, you girls are right there,
Right.
ground zero. No, really,
Absolutely.
you have that unique ability. It's a gift. It's a talent.
Yes.
It's just you just have that. And
Mhm.
a lot of guys that I know of. One guy comes in mind, particularly he's a businessman. He's no longer with us, but went up to Idaho to see him, and we were sitting down talking. And he says, "Jim, do you know why I bring my wife in the meetings?" And she just sits there over in the corner. She just sits there. He says, she's the one that gives me true feedback. She watches body language. She listens to what's said. And he told me, he says, 100% of the time, if I follow her gut feeling,
Uh,
I come out okay. And if
yeah.
I don't, I end up getting bit in the butt. That was his expression.
Right.
But see, that's very wise because therefore, like I say, it's a yin and yang. It's a balance, is
It
what it
is.
is.
It
It
is.
really is.
When I need to write something um, that's either personal on a deep level or on a business level, and vice versa with my husband, we bounce it off each other,
Hmm. Hmm.
and we'll go through it 2 or 3 times and change some wording, add stuff,
Hmm.
etc., and tweak it.
Hmm.
And you know what? When we do that,
Hmm.
not only are we working toward a common goal because what's his concerns me, what's mine concerns him,
Hmm.
but we become better people
Oh, yeah.
because we are giving of ourselves and entrusting each
Hmm.
other, both emotionally and
Hmm.
mentally. We're trusting each
Yeah.
other.
And mentally, you're both in step, going down the
Yes,
same path. That's really
yes,
important. Yeah, truly is.
absolutely.
And even in our business relationship with Donna and I being partners, I mean, there's a lot of times when I'm talking about something and Donna said, "Well, Jim, let me share this with you." And it's a yin and yang, and it really makes it more balanced.
Oh, it does.
And yeah, because there's sometimes that she'll say something, and I'll say, "Well, I'm looking at it like this," and she'll, "Well, I like that better." It's give and take,
Yep.
and it's also respect because we all need good advice.
Hmm.
We really do. And I'm 74 years of age, and I've been, I wished I'd learned this back when I was young and good looking, as I like to say, but really, there's not a person on planet Earth that doesn't need good advice.
Right.
Even at my age, I could use mentors.
Hmm.
I sure can. I sure can. And for me to be able to take those gifts and talents and pass this on, and I'm talking way too much. We're supposed to be talking about the women, but it just amazes me how, you know, their stories are not being told.
Absolutely.
And this
Absolutely.
lady that we were talking about, Emmeline Parkhurst, Time Magazine recognized her as being one of the top 100 people in the 20th century. Wow.
Yep. Well, this next lady, I've never heard of her either. So this is Rosalind Franklin
Hmm.
from 1920 to 1958. So obviously she was not that old.
Hmm.
When the double helix structure of DNA was discovered, scientists claimed that they had unraveled the secret to life itself. The crucial piece of evidence was provided by the expert crystallographer Rosalind Franklin. The
Hmm.
famous photograph 51, an X ray picture showing a dark cross of dots, the signature image of a concealed molecule spiral.
Hmm.
The life changing innovations that followed, mapping the human genome, test tube babies, genetic engineering, all depend on understanding the chemical foundations of heredity.
Hmm. Yeah. And you know, it's really amazing. You ask people about DNA, they act like, oh, it's just something that came out new. And
Right. No,
no, no, no.
it's been tried to be understand for so
Hmm.
many years. In fact,
Yeah.
I'm not even sure, Jim, that we could research it and find out how many years prior to the discovery
Yeah.
that it was being researched.
Oh my goodness. Absolutely. And what I find interesting in history is that when you think about, like, Alexander Graham Bell, he really, what he did, he fine tuned the things that others had worked on.
Right.
And maybe he put all the pieces together, but he didn't start from ground zero with nothing. I mean, that's what's implied.
Hmm.
And these are the kind of things that, young people should hear about. There's people that's done some things, and you could take it to the next level. And it's important for kids to understand they can dream. And look at these ladies that, who went against great odds.
Right.
Society, the reason why we have cell phones today did not come from a bunch of, IT guys. A lot of people don't know that. And Heidi Lamar was an
Yep.
actress.
And
And she
she
was,
was brilliant.
oh, I gotta talk a little bit about Heidi.
Absolutely.
She was watching her child play the keys on the piano. And she thought, because the war effort was going on. She says, what if you could change frequencies just like you change musical notes? That's
Right.
what got her mind spinning. And she actually came out with what led to the creation of the SINGARS radio. I was an instructor in the military, single channel ground airborne radio system. Uh, I know it's not classified, but I'm not going to say it. But that radio frequency, hops frequencies so fast. We're talking over 100 times per second.
Right.
And it covers the entire spectrum. Like you get in your car radio and you might be at, 92.3 to 107.5. That thing could just imagine hitting all those different stations there.
Right.
I'm not going to share how many stations it can hit on one, but anyway, that thing could hop from this station, that station, this station, that station, and do it all within over 100 times a second. 100 times a second.
That is amazing.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something else. Heidi Lamar went to the Navy, not Secretary of Navy, went to the Navy in 1962 during the Bay of Pigs and tried to sell this to the Navy and says, hey, you could use this.
Mm-hmm.
But
They
the
laughed at her.
Navy, Yeah. Well, the Navy, because she was a beautiful actress and she was a very beautiful woman, they didn't think she could be that smart.
Right.
The
God,
problem really
God
the
forbid.
yeah, the problem really was she was in there trying to teach a bunch of orangutans who didn't know a banana from a baseball bat.
Well, it goes to show you that the lesson in this is, where is your mind closed?
Yeah, exactly.
That is the lesson. And we talk about this. We close the show every day with giving yourself grace.
Mhm.
Well, the grace is, what are you giving yourself grace for?
Right, right, right. Yeah. And to finish my story about Heidi Lamar, the Navy finally caught on to it, what she was talking about. But they did her dirty.
Yeah, they didn't give her
They
credit.
waited until the patent expired.
Hmm.
And then they kind of like, hey, look what we invented. You didn't
Right,
invent anything, you orangutan. And that gets up on my backside when people take, credit for something.
right,
As if as if they parted the Red Sea and let us into the promised land when they can't do anything.
right.
Ah, it gets to
Yeah,
me. Anyway,
yeah. They
meanwhile,
did
back at
not.
the ranch.
They did not give them. They did not give her grace. But worse than that, they didn't give themselves grace, Jim.
Yeah.
Because you know what? They had to have spent the rest of their life with guilt on them.
Hmm.
Think about that.
Well, people like that, Donna, uh, they may not have guilt, but what they don't realize
They don't
is
have
that
deep.
when you stab somebody in the back, that thing's a boomerang. It's going to make a big circle and come right back to you. When you cheat
Absolutely.
someone, you've cheated yourself out of the true riches of life. Sooner
Hmm.
or later, the chickens are going to come home to roost, and you're not
Right.
going to like it. That's just a principle. Just like
Yep.
the sun rises in the east and sets in the west,
Right.
and
Right.
it just amazes me. Who's next on the list we'd like to talk about?
Well, I think that one's yours to take.
Is
But
it? Oh,
go
okay.
ahead.
I'm going to mention another lady that I've never heard anything about. Angela Burdett. Is that Coutts? Coutts or
I
Coutts?
think. I think so.
Yeah. Either way, I probably mispronounced it correctly the first time. She lived from 1814 to 1906, and she was the first woman to have made a peer, Peer. And Burdett Coutts, she was made a baroness by Queen Victoria for her work on behalf of the poor. She prevented from working at Coutts Bank, despite inherited her grandfather Thomas Coutts' shares and fortune. Instead, she devoted her time working with one of the clients, Charles Dickens, and she was a pioneer in social housing, building homes for the poor, financing numerous projects, including the redevelopment of East London. This
That's
is a
huge.
story that should be told. How she could have, she didn't grow up. She grew up in riches, no doubt about that. And I think one of the worst things you can hear about is someone who was born with a silver spoon in their mouth, so to say, and
Right.
they were born into a family that was well to do, and they let that be their pride and let that define them. And I really admire people. I know people today who have a lot of money,
Oh yeah.
but the thing that they focus on is like orphans.
Right.
I have a good friend of mine who lives in Singapore by the name of Sasha. And I just really admire her because she has an animal shelter and she goes out and works with kids, goes to the orphan's home, makes sure they're fed, clothed, and, contributes wherever she can.
Right.
Those are the kind of people we should be looking up to. That's the standard.
It's the kind of people that our children should be exposed to.
Oh, yeah.
So
Oh,
let's
yeah.
put it that way. When my children were growing up, and this is just me, but when
Hmm.
my children were growing up, they were not exposed to uh, a lot of mainstream TV, if you will. They were
Hmm.
exposed to Animal Planet. They were exposed to
Oh yeah. Oh
Channel
yeah.
8 kind of thing, PBS. They were exposed to learning and understanding things. So I remember, as an example, when I lived in Kansas, so that would have made my youngest a baby. And we had not yet left Kansas. But my two older children and I at dinner had a discussion about plutonium.
Hmm. Really?
Yes, my oldest was like 7 years old.
Wow.
And we were just,
Plutonium?
plut-
Wow.
yes, yes. Because I didn't believe that my children should be um, short sighted in their education.
Hmm.
So they watch a lot of A&E, right?
Hmm.
Which would have different kinds of those programs on. And so, the discussion came up about plutonium. So we discussed plutonium. And
Hmm.
I never shied from a subject, even if it was too advanced for them.
Hmm.
My philosophy was, and it's that way even with my grandchildren, that my philosophy was and is, if a child asks, even if it's maybe an uncomfortable subject, you
Hmm.
need to give them enough information to match them where they're at in their maturity level.
Oh yeah.
And to dismiss them if they've asked a question and not answer it, to me, is a great tragedy to the
Hmm.
child.
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
squelches their mind.
Hmm. It's amazing when you were first talking about what your kids were allowed to watch on TV and all. That was a time when we did it, and my parents especially did it. Of course, there wasn't that much garbage on TV like there is
Right.
today. My goodness gracious! I mean, that stuff is just thrown in your face. And what gets me, they act like it's you take a cow patty. I'm a country boy. You take a cow patty and you put whipped cream on it and a cherry on top. It's not dessert. It's still a cow patty.
Right.
But all of the junk and all of the garbage out there that warps young people's minds. We might have saw me smile there earlier because it reminded me my mother would not allow the magazine, National Geographic in our home.
Ah,
And the reason why, because she saw an issue over, I guess it was obviously in Africa somewhere, and the tribes, and it showed the
women.
female members that, yeah, and they were, bare from the waist up.
Correct.
And mother would not allow it. I ain't having that filth in my house. And, because she was just concerned about that. And,
Right.
it's just that's something we should concern us all because all of the evilness and wickedness, let's call it what it is. I mean, it's no sugarcoat it. I
Right.
mean, that type of stuff warps minds.
Well, it does. And I believe that our children, of course, we all agree that our children are our future, right?
Hmm.
And we talk
Absolutely.
about that on our
Hmm.
children's show. But I think it is a sad day when we have people who try and um, crush parents who are trying to do the right thing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I had that happen when we moved to Ohio and we were going to a church, and my pastor had rented out the entire theater to watch Passion of the Christ. And
Yeah.
we all know, if you've seen it, it's a fabulous movie.
Oh, yeah.
Mel Gibson did an incredible job on that, but
He
it's
did.
very graphic. And I remember walking in trying to find a seat with my three small children in tow. And these two, and I'm just going to say it because that's what they were, old biddies, were
How do you really feel about them, Donna?
we're like, well, did you see that lady bringing those kids in here? What is she thinking? And that old biddy said it within my earshot. So I turned around and looked at my kids and I said, just a minute. I walked back round down to her and I kind of bent down and I said, well, that mom's name is Donna and she's here with her church group. And she's here to have her children understand it from the get go
Mhm.
and not have it bastardized by somebody else. And if
That's
they're
right.
going to learn, they're going to learn from me and they're going to learn from the church. And if
Mhm.
you have a problem with that, ma'am, I suggest you're in the wrong pew.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
I was a little irritated about it because she was trying to devalue my teaching. I mean,
Mhm.
at least, I had them in a proper place. They weren't out there learning guns and violence.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Kids can't. They got to know the truth like that, and in a
Sure.
proper way. Yeah. They really truly do, and it's the parents' responsibility to do that. And
Absolutely.
and all kids, they need a mom and dad at home. They really do. Because dad brings something to the party, mom brings something to the party. When you look back, I look back at my life growing up on a farm. My life was very simple. Uh, you know, there wasn't complicated or anything like that. The only time I got my little butt beat was when I did something dumb and deserved it. But looking back, I'm very, very grateful for the way I was raised,
Right.
the neighborhood I was raised in, because neighbors watched out for you.
Hmm.
And when you did something wrong and the neighbor knew it was wrong, the neighbor would be kind enough to call your mom or your dad and say, "You may want to talk to your son about this because I
Right.
saw this because it could be, they're not gossiping. They're talking
Right.
about, hey, that could be dangerous,
Right.
you know." And I remember one time a neighbor called on us because several of us for some reason, we decided to climb up in some pine trees and smoke cigars. Man, we got sick. We got
Hmm.
all kind of lightheaded there, and we're
Got
trying
all
to hang on.
green.
Oh gosh, man. Oh, it was awful. But see, the neighbor lady was concerned that we could fall out of the tree, get swimmy headed, pass out.
Right.
And so she says, I think you better talk to, your son because him and his buddies were over there and they were smoking cigars up in the trees and they all got lightheaded. What? What? Yep. Well, needless to say, cut that long story short,
Got some
I
thumb
got,
therapy.
yeah, I was a little light in the rear end after that. But see, it wasn't gossiping. It was
Right.
about, hey, there's a concern there. And when it comes to kids, my goodness gracious, kids don't recognize danger. Not at all. We don't even
Right.
think about it. You know,
Right.
none of us did.
So, Jim, I've got one more lady before we wrap up our show.
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
And I think,
I've been
yep,
talking too much. I apologize.
we are having such a good time today. But this lady, again, folks, this is astounding to me that I've never heard about her. Her name is
Hmm.
Marie Stopes from 1880 to 1958. So she had a nice long life. Marie Stopes, advocate of birth control and a sex educator, was
Hmm.
born in Edinburgh but studied for a science degree at University College in London. In 1918, she published the highly popular Married Love, a second book entitled Wise Parenthood, which dealt explicitly with contraception. Appearing shortly after, a controversial figure, especially for her views
Hmm.
on uh,
Eugenics.
eugenics.
Hmm.
Stopes, nonetheless, was a key figure in publicizing her cause. A first birth control clinic was set up in a poor working class area of North London in
Hmm.
1921, and in bringing women worldwide the opportunity of planned pregnancies.
Hmm.
How important is that, Jim? Because for so many years, um, and I've used this, but women were pregnant every time they turned around,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
right? And
And
your body, I mean, let's be honest, it isn't good for you. It
Mm-mm.
isn't good for you to be have babies back to back to back to back to back
Mm-mm.
to back.
Mm-mm.
Your
Yeah,
body's
because
got to have some rest and recovery in there.
yeah, you weren't created to be breeding stock.
No,
And having the understanding and the education of how to manage that,
correct.
and to be a parent, but also be able to manage that and understand it, because a lot of young girls, they got into trouble because of their ignorance.
Right,
Uh, it's amazing how many young girls, even today, don't even think about using some type of protection,
right.
either being on the pill or using a condom, that sort of thing.
Well,
I
and
mean, they.
how many people out there believe in the wise tale that if you're nursing a baby, you can't get pregnant?
I know somebody that we both know somebody that fell into that. I'm going like, how did you come up with that one? But anyway, she has another bundle of love. Her and
Yes,
her husband, and all 7 girls now. They
right.
have, yeah, yeah. And Michaela just laugh at us. She won't take offense to it. She works with us, and but yeah, when she told me that, I'm going like, where did you hear that at? I mean, I don't know. I'm not a subject matter expert on Planned Parenthood or birth control, but I thought like, that's not hard to figure out that
Right.
that's a myth. But anyway, if they went to night school on that one, you might say.
Oh goodness. But we really take our hats off, Jim, to all the women out there. And we on our Women in Leadership over the next several weeks, folks, we're
Mhm.
going to be coming back with more women that we've never heard of before.
Oh yeah, because their stories need to be told. Because
They
my
do. They
goodness
need to be
gracious,
saluted. They need to be
yeah.
celebrated, and
Mhm.
they need to be have the
The proper recognition they've
yes, the
earned.
celebration and the
Yeah.
recognition in which they deserve, and they have
Hmm.
been hidden
Hmm.
in a book far too long, and we want
Mm.
to do what we can to bring them to light.
Oh yeah, and you think about it. You think about all the men of the 20th centuries, and you can just name
Oh,
man after man after man their accomplishments. Henry Ford's great comment:
sure.
"If you think you can, or if you think you can't, you're right."
You're right.
That sort of thing.
But
And just list
we
them
need
on
to
and
hit
on.
the women out there
Yes.
who have been their stories have been buried far too
Hmm.
long.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's really amazing how these women. A lot of them, they were trailblazers.
Sure.
And they never even got a cold cup of coffee or a stale donut or not even a decent thank you.
Right.
Some of them didn't even get a full page in the history book.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
So we're going to
Mm.
do what we can to give them a
Yeah,
spotlight here on the
yeah, yeah.
messages of inspirational stories on our
Mhm.
Friday show for Women in Leadership.
Amen. And I'll try not to get on you guys too much, but try and behave, okay?
Well, Jim, we are out of time. We're at the end of our show.
Yes, ma'am, we are. And it's
Gone.
going to be and it's Friday.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this weekend and this. I just want to say, ladies and gentlemen, it's important sometimes to sit back, relax, and just give thanks. Be grateful for what you have. Uh, the people in your life that love you and like you, and also forgive you when you goof up.
Right.
That's that grace thing that we were talking about earlier, and we always close that with every show. But try and be more thankful. That's a good way to look at the. Everybody talks about the New Year resolution. We don't pay any attention to that because what you're doing, you want to create a lifestyle of being grateful and being able to be grateful. You're going to be a giving person because that's what brings true joy and happiness in your life. As we bring our show to a close, please remember one thing: you are entitled to be loved. You have every right to love yourself and to love others. And there's going to be people in your life that the only way you can love them is to love them enough to let them go because they're their own worst enemy and you can't fix them.
And the lesson that they brought you in your life is done.
Hmm. Yes.
Mhm.
Exactly. Put that in the history banks of your mind
Right.
that you went through that lesson, you passed that test, and you're not going to let yourself be beat up by it. You're going to give yourself grace because you got to love yourself enough, as Donna likes to say, give yourself.
Grace.
Amen. And be sure and share our show with others. And we want to thank all of you good people around the world. Our show continues to go and grow. And Donna and I are so honored
We are.
that of all the shows you could watch,
You're watching ours.
yeah, it's,
Thank you.
yes, thank you. It's very humbling. And I think our percentage is like 70% women, 30% men, something like that.
Right
That's
around
what's
that.
yeah. And that's all Donna's fault. She attracts all the ladies. 30% of the guys put up with me. No, but sincerely, we sincerely hope that you have a wonderful weekend. We hope that you and your loved ones are blessed in all areas of your life. And look for ways to be a blessing to others if you want to be happy.
Absolutely.
That's the best advice I can possibly give you. It's something that I subscribe to in my own personal life. God bless you. We love you. Thank you so much. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. And you guys out there, try and behave. We'll see you Monday. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.